You guys can hear me. Can you hear me? Check one, check one. Can you hear me? Come on, man. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, now we can hear. Can you hear me? Okay, now we can hear. All right, guys. Now I finally got some. Okay, now we can hear. All right, guys. Now I finally got some. All right, so fifth time's the charm. What's going on, guys? If you happen to make it back onto my channel, welcome to my first live stream. Hopefully, you guys can hear me now, and I can actually have a conversation. So my name is Aaron. I'm a single dad. I have a son that's 8 years old, or almost 8 years old. He'll be 8 on June 12th. So I kind of just want to talk tonight. This is my first live stream. I always tell people that being a first time YouTube creator, being a small channel, it gives you a little leeway to kind of experiment with how YouTube works. And my goal in all this is to be able to help as many people as I possibly can. Uh, Again, I started out as a single dad when I was 4 years, when my son was 4 years old. I was in a normal relationship, and unfortunately, the relationship just didn't work out. And when I got served papers, I kind of had to start my whole life as a single dad, and it was extremely difficult. I won't lie. I think the hardest part about becoming a single dad and like realizing that you're gonna have to go to court and you're gonna have to fight for your rights as a father is that you have to do it on your own. When you're in a relationship or you're with the mother of your child, and you kind of have each other to be a teamwork. But when you're finally a single dad by yourself, and you have that first night where it's you and your child alone, it's extremely scary. Like I'm like, am I feeding him right? Am I doing the right thing? Am I making sure his hygiene is done for the night? Um, is he gonna be able to make it through the night without crying and wanting his mom? That's the hardest part. And honestly, like during this time, I cannot describe how hard the family court system is on fathers. Um, I think the worst part about the family court system is that it almost rewards fathers that don't want to be in their kids' lives, because you can be a dad that doesn't want to be in your kid's life, and you can have that. You can sign away your rights. But if you're an active father and you actually want to be a dad, it's extremely hard. And uh, I feel like it's kind of like the British legal system where in the UK you're guilty until proven innocent, and that's how it is with family court. Honestly, there was such an uphill battle between all the protections that there are in family court, and honestly, I think the reason why I created this channel was I wanted to be a resource for fathers who are looking to be the best versions of themselves, because this time is extremely challenging. And like I said, when I first became a single dad, I tried to find resources online to kind of maximize being the best father I could be. And honestly, there wasn't really that many. Most of the info out there was kind of going through the family court system and like how to own your ex in court and how to win custody in court. But I think coming out the other side of it, you know, there is no winners in family court, regardless if you get certain rights. Um, I went through an extremely hard battle, and it was extremely toxic, and it was a battle of you know who could throw the most punches, who could throw the most ammunition at the other person, and honestly, like nobody truly wins in that, and like the best that you can hope for is that one day you guys can put your differences aside, and to be able to come together and co-parent. And that's kind of why I built this channel. Was I went through the hell of the family court system and the battle, and I came out the other end, and I was able to be the best father I could, and now we're able to co-parent, and now we have an amazing relationship. Is it perfect? No, but if you told me back then that it was even possible to have this kind of relationship, I would tell you that you were mistaken. So I appreciate you guys that are watching right now. Let's see. Thanks, Mock. How old are you, and how old is your dad? Hey guys, if you're in the chat, feel free to put stuff in the chat. This is my first live stream. It's honestly like terrifying. So I'm trying not to mumble. I'm trying to get everything out. So if you have stuff you want to talk about, I've gone through a lot of different stuff. Like I said, I'm a single dad. I've been raising my son now for 4 years. Um, I co-parent in a relationship, or I have a co-parenting relationship with my ex. I'm also in the Army Reserve, so I can answer military questions. Um, it's kind of where my channel is. It's kind of, I think the growth has been kind of hard on my channel because, most people have like a certain niche that they have, and that's like kind of their target audience. The issue with my channel is I kind of have multiple target audiences. So like my goal is to help single dads, but I'm also in the military, so my goal is to help people that are joining the military, whether it be later in life, and kind of be able to help you get through that process, and uh, let you know the things that you should know to be best prepared for military life. I'm also a person that's gone through grief and loss in my life. I lost my mom. I lost my grandparents. I lost my twin brother, and that's some of the things I talk about on my channel. I'm a big proponent that we learn more from our adversity in life than we do from our successes. I think when you go through hard times, especially as a young person, I think it has a tremendous way of being able to inspire you to move forward and kind of build a better life for yourself. So that's honestly what this channel is for. I would say that becoming a YouTube creator, it's hard because you put your heart and soul into these videos, and you think you have good information, but if nobody watches, then your information doesn't really resonate the way you're hoping it does. So honestly, this is a great forum to be able to kind of open that up and have discussions. uh, I see people are saying hello in the chat, so I appreciate you guys jumping in and saying hello. um, where are you guys watching from? So is anybody that's watching right now, or is anybody going through a family court system or a family court battle? All right, so I don't see anything in the chat right now, but I guess as a single dad, I'll go through. Yesterday was a Memorial Day. I'm part of the United States Army Reserve, and yesterday as a part of the military, I've tried to kind of educate my son in how the difference between the different holidays that we have for the military. So back in November, I went to my son's school, and I described what Veterans Day was. I told the kids what Veterans Day is and how it compares differently to Memorial Day. A lot of us have off for Memorial Day, and it's a great way to kind of relax and have some downtime. And I just I emphasize to kids and the younger generation what Memorial Day truly means. Uh, it's one of the reasons why I joined the military was because of the great people that served before me. I always looked at the greatest generation, like the World War II, and I watched Band of Brothers yesterday, and it's hard to think that like those men and women gave for our country, and um, I try to I try to educate my son as best as I can, and I try to educate the younger generation about what that day truly means. So, for example, for the last 4 years, every single Memorial Day weekend, we will go to the cemetery. I'll order like 150 American flags offline. We'll go to the cemetery. We'll go visit my grandfather, who was a World War II veteran. He served in the Navy, and he was blown up, and he had shrapnel in his eye and went blind. Um, Fortunately, he made it through World War II, but there's many that didn't. And I think nowadays, wearing the uniform, I try to be a symbol for my son as something to look up to and something he can inspire to be. I would say selfishly, like I don't want him to serve in the military. My goal is that I hope that my service is enough for him, and he can be proud of that part of it. And I think that anybody that is a parent that does have kids that serve in the military, it's extremely. I mean, just being a father in general is hard, and thinking about your child in harm's way is even harder. So, uh, again, I've visited the schools and I've educated the kids on the difference between the holidays, and I think just too many of them are just happy early birthday, Emily. You only got 48 minutes. So, how old are you going to be? 11. What are you doing up this late? Shouldn't you be in bed? So, my son's turning 8 next month, and he's trying to tell me what he wants for his birthday. We were at his aunt's house, and we bought our. She had a one of those hoverboards, like the skateboards that you stand on, and you can if you lean forward, it goes forward. He wants one of those for his birthday, but it seems like he keeps wanting things that are dangerous. So um, hopefully, you get something that is safe for you to play with. So where is everybody watching from? I see I got three people online right now watching. Where are you from? What's your story? What brought you to my channel? I'd love to strike up a conversation and kind of lead that way. My goal is to be able to use my real life experiences and kind of help anybody that's watching go through certain circumstances, whether it's parenting, whether it's going through a tough time as a kid and using that as a motivating force. If you're joining the military, if you lost a sibling, or can I get noticed? What do you mean, Marco? All right, so I don't know what you mean by that, but so I guess I'll continue on with the Memorial Day thing. So uh, I hope you guys had a chance to get out and visit something that had to do with the military. I know right now it's a tough time in our country, and I just want you guys to know that regardless of whoever's in office and whatever's happening in the world, that like the uniform still stands for something greater than what's currently happening. And There's been tough times in history, and we've gotten through it, but I would still like to know that the uniform represents something truly greater than all of us. So, all right, so now that there's nobody left in chat, I feel like I can start over. So again, my goal is to help as many dads as I possibly can. If you're going through family court right now and you're going through some challenging times, I just want you to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And if you're going through a hard time now, I promise that it can get better. But the thing is that you need to be able to step up and kind of do it for yourself. You need to be able to come to terms with how things are, push yourself, find a way to get through these hard times. It's honestly, it's going to be a super hard time, but I can promise that if you have the patience and you have the will, and you have a clear direction that you want to be in, that you can achieve what you want. Now, you might not get exactly what you want, but again, I try to tell people that if you if you have a clear idea of what you want and you move towards it, you can eventually get something that you want. Hey, welcome. I hope you're here to talk something. I've had some kids coming on and talking. So I guess now that you're on, I will kind of have this discussion. Um, what brought you to my channel? Are you a single dad? Are you thinking about joining the military? Are you've gone through loss? Are you going through grief? I'd love for you to talk in the chat, and hopefully we can steer the conversation. So those of you who just joined, I am a single dad. I'm also a member of the military. My videos on my channel kind of cater towards that. I also have my daily series of dad jokes of the day. My goal is to make as many people laugh as possible. And then my videos are catered towards giving real world examples of real things I've done as a father to try to be the best version of myself. Try to help other dads that are navigating through the family court system. uh, it's extremely difficult, and my goal is to be able to help as many dads as possible. Uh, so I see I got two people watching right now. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves, just what brought you to my channel, and I'd love to kind of steer the conversation based on what you guys want to hear about. So again, I'm a single dad. I'm a member of the military, army. I've gone through grief and loss. I'm a man of faith, and kind of my faith has gotten through me a lot of these challenges. Um, I've also used my adversity in life to kind of motivate me to become successful. I'm also a new YouTube creator, so um, whatever you guys want to hear about, I would love to dive into. This is my first live stream, and I'll be honest, it's absolutely terrifying because we know when you're actually doing videos, you kind of have an idea what you're going to talk about, and then whoever clicks on it kind of has an idea what they're going to be watching. But these live streams are terrifying because nobody, I don't know who's going to show up, and I don't know what you guys are going to want to talk about. So um, I guess I'll jump into my kind of combining the two things I care about the most is first of all, being a dad is my number one thing. It's why I started this channel. Um, I started this channel because when I was going through family court, there wasn't really any channels that were out there giving good advice on how to be the best version of myself, to be the best dad possible to my son. A lot of the videos I was watching out there were more targeted towards, you know, how to own your ex in court or how to get the most out of your family court custody, your custody agreement. And honestly, having that mindset and having that negative mindset, I think it can be extremely toxic, and it can hurt you in more ways than it can be positive. I always tell people that when it comes to like the family court system, you truly can't ever you'll never do something truly positive in one day. And you can't really change things in the positive with one statement. But the one thing you can do in family court is you can ruin things in one thing. And that's the truth in any time in life is, if you go to work and you say whatever you want, you have the freedom to do so, but how people react, it might not end well for you. So that's kind of what I want to instill in people is having a positive mindset when it comes to life in general. But like if you're watching this as a parent or as a dad, um, how you conduct yourself is going to be monumental in how you move forward as a father. Especially, I think as dads, as parents, we're always on stage. So it's one thing to teach your kids, like, say please, say thank you, be kind, be courteous. And it's another thing to actually live out these values when you're out, and you're out in public and you're treating people with respect. I think that the way you act in front of your kids has a huge impact on how they act. Um, we are the first example that our kids have. So um, let's see. I'm just curious. I know I see there's 6 people watching right now. Um, what is what brought you to my channel? Was it parenting? Was it military? Was it grief and loss? I'm just curious. If you could just put it in the chat, I would love to have a direction to kind of push this conversation. If you're willing to share, you don't even have to say exactly what you came here for. Just if you just give me a topic and I'll we can go forward. Well, I guess I could talk about my challenges of starting up my first live stream. Is that I started the first live stream and nobody could hear me, and I figures I actually had a lot of people watching and nobody could hear me, and they told me I could be a professional mime. So uh, luckily, one person said they're able to read lips very well. So thankful for that. um, but if you guys are watching, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. I have new dad jokes every single day. Sometimes I have fun facts of the day, and I have parenting advice, military advice, life on about grief and loss. I'm a twinless twin. I also lost my mom and my grandparents, and I've kind of gone through a little bit of everything. I've gone through failure. I was a horrible high school student, and somehow I was able to turn my life around and become successful. Um, at least in my career wise, the it's kind of out there realizing if my family goals are ever going to be truly achieved. But um, I'd like to think I'm a pretty good dad. Uh, I'm pretty passionate about it, and being able to help other dads is huge. And honestly, if you're watching and if you're a mother or if you're any member of the family, my goal is to help build the bond that our kids have. So I think the lessons that I talk about in some of my videos will be helpful to both mothers and fathers. You know, it's kind of interesting to see where this channel can go, because if you look at my videos, right now, most of my videos are about single dadhood, parenting challenges I've seen, family court issues. If you're watching right now and you came on because of the military, I got quite a bit of military videos. And, I originally joined the army when I was 18 years old, and I didn't make it in for the first time because I fell in love with a girl and I followed the wrong things in life. Um, but then I decided to change my life around. I went to college when I was 23 years old. I graduated when I was 29, got a job. I didn't feel like I was really fulfilling, I was making a difference in the world. And I think as a man, I think that our goal in life is to feel like that the work that we're doing makes a difference in the world. I was managing restaurants at the time, and I told myself I wasn't happy doing what I was doing. Sometimes I think making money isn't the most important thing. Obviously, when you get later in life, being able to make money is important because it provides you with a certain level of security. But I think when you're younger, that's your opportunity to be able to kind of do things that you want. Kind of explore, see what you like, see what you're interested in. Um, when I went to college, I first went and I wanted to be a dentist. And I watched Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer when I was a kid, and I was like, well, if Herbie the Elf can be a dentist, then I can be a dentist too. So then, I was really dumb in high school. I started in college. I I took the most remedial level courses that you could think of. I learned whole numbers in my first year in college. Um, and then I transferred to a 4 year school. And when I got there, I kind of realized that I wasn't going to be a dentist. So um, I was like, let me pursue something that makes me happy. So I started working for the football team at school, and I did that for 2 years. And that was honestly the most fun I've ever had in a job. I think I got paid $1,500 for the semester, and I enjoyed it. I got to travel around the country. I got to meet future NFL players. I graduated in the fall or in the springtime, and I wanted to coach college football. Unfortunately, we had a pretty bad season, so all of our staff got fired. And in the world of college athletics, it's all based on nepotism. So it's who you know, where you know them from. Did you play? Did you do this? Um, so once they got fired, then the coach I was under, he was on the older end of his coaching life, and he didn't really have any opportunities because nobody wants to hire somebody that's in their mid 70s. So I did that. I tried to find other jobs. I applied to a bunch of um, graduate assistant jobs, and I wasn't able to find anything. I think I applied to like 250 different colleges, and none of them took me because again, it's about who you know in that game. So I kind of leaned on what I had done already up until that time in my life. I started working in the food industry, and I did that from the time I was 18 years old. I graduated in 2015. I got a job as a restaurant manager in 2016. Um, and I was originally at Ruby Tuesday. So that's kind of aging myself, as that was back when Ruby Tuesday was still prominent. I worked at Longhorn Steakhouse. Longhorn Steakhouse is where I met my son's mother. So I met her and I fell in love, and I was originally going to go active duty. Um, but then I was like, well, I want to have a family, so let me try to do everything I possibly can to make this work. So I decided to go active duty because I wanted I wanted to be have a family, but I also wanted to serve my country. So I decided that after, you know, originally failing in 2004, I originally tried joining all the different branches. I tried joining the Navy. I tried joining the Air Force. Tried joining the Marine Corps, and none of them I could get. I couldn't get a waiver for any of them. So I kind of gave up on that dream for a while. And there was a night at work where I was like, honestly, I don't feel like I'm making a difference in the world. And I think as a man and as like a person, like you want to feel like the things you're doing matter. And honestly, I just didn't feel like I was making a difference. So I went and talked to a recruiter, and because I was going reserve, I wanted to kind of find a job that would translate into the civilian world. Um, because being infantry, as awesome as a job as it is, to be able to shoot guns and all that, you can't really translate that into a specific unless you want to go into like contracting. But that wasn't. I think at 31 years old, it was too late for me to kind of go into that world. So I decided to look at a couple different MOSs. You know, I got my degree in communication, so I wanted to kind of use that. So one of the jobs that I wanted to do was public affairs specialist, which is basically like a radio jockey and possibly news. So like on the armed forces network. Um, so I tried to do that, and there wasn't any close by units. I also thought about, like a lot of the movies, like you see the where they're like in the tactical operations center, and like they show the people watching the TV of the battle, and I thought that looked cool. Which was I thought about doing intel analyst. There wasn't any close by units, so then lastly I was like, well, let me find paralegal, and I found a job as a paralegal in a local unit that was about maybe 100 miles away, and I was able to get in that unit, and I signed my contract as a paralegal specialist. Up until that point, I started my relationship with my ex, and I quit my job. I started dating her, and honestly, right away, it didn't work out, and I left her. And a couple of weeks later, she told me she was pregnant, and I had been talking to somebody else at that point, and I decided to put that away. And my whole life, I wanted to be a father. So when I finally had that opportunity, I took a chance, and I tried to do things the right way. I bought a ring, I proposed, and I tried to make things work. And unfortunately, we had a miscarriage. And honestly, this is one of my videos. I talk about like the feelings of having a miscarriage, and a lot of times there's the support for the women, and there isn't really the support for the man because it's not considered a loss that we endure. But honestly, like, when I was told I was going to be a dad, I think that there's the two different highlight reels that you kind of think of when you think about being a dad. One is if you have a son, playing catch with your son. The other is if you have a girl, like you think about playing dolls, playing tea party, playing dress up. And when you have a miscarriage, that all those dreams kind of like honestly, it just breaks your heart. And it took a while to get over that. And um, I continue to want to make the relationship work, and I had dreams of being a dad again. But this was right before I was leaving for basic training. So I joined, and I left in October. Um, so I left for basic training, and I was going to be there during Christmas time. So basically, I started basic training in October, and we finished our last event in December, and I came home for victory block leave. And when I came home from victory block leave, my I get back to my fiance's apartment, and there's a little. She had a little bag where she put like an ornament, and she had a an ultrasound picture. And honestly, like before I left for basic training, all I wanted to do was see the ultrasound of. I wanted to hear the heartbeat, and I wanted to see an ultrasound. And when we had the miscarriage, like it hurt more than anything. And when I got home, and then she presented me the ultrasound, I was like in complete shock because, again, I got her pregnant right before I left for basic, and I had no idea that she was even pregnant. So I get home, and she's like, "Well, why aren't you excited?" And I think at that moment, like I was just in shock, and I was trying to like comprehend what I was seeing because, again, my last memory was of the baby that didn't happen, and then now seeing an ultrasound of my child, it was like it was surreal. And um, I thought I was gonna get married during that time, and so I had certain expectations to go back to basic training with the dependent, but I never thought that dependent was going to be a child. So that was a great surprise. And unfortunately, we didn't get married, and I kept trying to push for it to happen, and unfortunately, it just didn't happen. And so I left back for basic training, went back for about a week. And then a week later, I graduated, and then my fiance came down to basic training, and we drove from because I went to basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. I We got in a car and we drove from Fort Jackson to Fort Lee, Virginia, and the whole time she was having car sickness, and because she was having car sickness, she had to drive because she would always get sick as the passenger. Um, so we got to Fort Lee, Virginia, and we get up to headquarters where I'm supposed to check in, and it was like everything else in the army. It's all a cluster F, and it's unorganized and it's chaotic. So I get there, get out of the car. They start yelling at me. I grab all my stuff. I sprint over, I get ready to in process, and my ex leaves, and she wasn't really able to handle. She wasn't really able to handle me leaving very well. So uh, this was extremely hard because my whole life I wanted the fairy tale the fairy tale movie ending, and I wanted the big family. And my ex didn't want to talk to me at this time because it was too hard for her because she missed me. Um, so we didn't talk. And honestly, like when you're going through that, like just everything goes through your head. Everything that can go wrong plays through your head. Everything you say is the wrong thing. Everything you do is the wrong thing. Um, so I mean, I try to do the right things. We got our own place back home. I put the deposit down, and when I flew home and I got home, came back to an empty house, and we tried to build our new family together. But unfortunately, even before the pregnancy, we were fighting all the time, and unfortunately, having a pregnancy doesn't solve everything. Um, which I guess probably a lot of people can guess that to be true. Um, but I would say like we definitely didn't get along for a lot of it. But I think the thing that really pushed me, like that motivated to push me forward, was I always had the I was motivated by the memories that I thought I was going to make. So what I mean by that is I'm fighting for this family because I think that one day we're gonna have a house, that we're gonna have a family, that we're gonna have the house, the white picket fence, two-car garage. we're gonna have all this. Our kids are gonna be happy. We're gonna go on vacations. And when I came home, I was trained as a paralegal, and I stepped back into waiting tables to try to provide for my family, kind of put some money away so that when my son was born, we'd have a little bit of a nest egg that we could relax. Uh, and just every day it was a fight. Like, I was selfish for joining the army. I was selfish for doing this, and like no matter what I did, I couldn't do the right things, and that was incredibly difficult because I wanted to be a great father. I wanted to be a great husband, and just no matter what I did, I couldn't do the right things. And uh, after a while, you start to beat yourself up, and you tell yourself that you're the problem, that you're the reason why everything is happening the way it is. Um, and honestly, it was a toxic mindset, and so it was a toxic mindset, and instead of being the best version of myself, which I would say I was the best version of myself before I joined. Up until when I left for basic training, I think I was the best version of myself. And when I came home, I made a bunch of concessions that I probably shouldn't have made. But I think when you want to have a family and you want to like do things that you make concessions because you want your family unit together, and you want to feel like you're doing the right things. You want to think that what you're doing matters. So again, we moved in together, and we fought constantly, and we kept breaking up, getting back together, breaking up, getting back together. And then we had like one big fight right before her baby shower, and I moved out, and honestly, I didn't know what was going to happen in my life at that point. Like, you're thinking about your unborn child, and you're still thinking that things can be good and that you can reconcile, and that you can still have all the dreams that you had as a father. And no matter what I did, it didn't work out. And I came home, and I drove to Pittsburgh, and I went to a Dodgers game, and I came home, and the next day I was sleeping on the couch, and my stepmom called me and said that um, my fiance's water broke. So my fiance comes home, and we start discussing the plan of the day. So we pack up our bags, and we put our stuff in the car, and we drive to the hospital, and we check in, and it's like a multitude of emotions that go through when you're thinking about your child finally making it. And I it was surreal thinking that like my son was going to be here that day. So we go up to the room, and my son, I asked the nurse, I'm like, do you think he'll be born today? And this was June 12th, 2018. And she's like, he'll probably be here tomorrow. And so they come in, they give my fiance her, basically it's the medication that pushes and promotes the labor to induce. And like as soon as they gave her that shot, like she immediately started going into contractions. And honestly, it came on so fast that like they didn't even have a chance to give her an epidural. So I guess I will leave this story at that. We'll see if anybody else jumps in. And maybe I'll continue my story if somebody else jumps in. Hello, welcome to my live stream. I was just in the middle of talking about when my son was born. Are you here because you're a single parent? Are you here because you're military? Are you here for grief and loss? I'd be interested in what you're here for. I would love to kind of steer this conversation to help whatever made you click on my live stream. Can you hear me? Hello, welcome to my live stream. I was in the middle of talking about becoming a dad for the first time. So if you're here for family stuff, let me know in the comments. If you're here for military, leave that in the comments. If you're here for grief and loss, adversity, let me know what made you click in my my live stream. I'd love to kind of steer the conversation that way and have a conversation. So I guess I'll continue with my story. So get to the hospital. My son, they induced my ex, and um, basically she thought she was gonna have enough time to get the epidural, and she started contracting like crazy. And the nurse is like, he's coming now. So uh, the scary part was when she started pushing. Uh, the umbilical cord was around his neck, and honestly, that was like the first time I was truly scared because like as soon as like his heart rate started going down, like 10 doctors all storm in the room, and I'm sitting at the bed holding my fiance's hand, and it's like I feel totally helpless in this moment. Like she's stressed, the baby's heart rate is lowering. I don't know how to handle this. And I was like, "Do you need me to move?" And they're like, "No, you sitting here is what's helping best right now." Um, so I sat there, kept holding my hand, and then the best piece of advice I got from any dad was like, he's like, when you're in the delivery room, he's like, do not look between her legs. He's like, stay at her shoulder and look that way. If you do that, you'll be in the good, you'll be in the clear, and you won't be scarred for life. So I did that. I stayed there. She started pushing. Honestly, when she started pushing, like I've never felt somebody squeeze so hard in my life. Like I felt like my hand was like crippled like this. Like she was like squishing my hand. Um, like I felt like I couldn't complain about my hand being squished because she was pushing out a baby without an epidural, which is honestly insane when I think about it. But so my son comes out, and it's like all these things pop into my head. Like I said, like my relationship wasn't really working out well at this time, and like I had my son when I got her pregnant before I left for basic training, and because the relationship wasn't working, I'm like, what if there's a chance it's not my child? But then like he came out and he looked exactly like me, and I was like, well, I guess I can't really argue it right now. So, but he came out, and honestly, like this is the part I try to tell every father that becomes a father. Like when your child is born, it is honestly the most incredible. I can't even describe it. Like you think you love your mother, you think you love your father, you think you love your siblings, your significant other, your wife, um, just any person that you love. When you meet this child, like you instantly love this person more than anything you could ever imagine in your entire life. And like honestly, that feeling has stayed with me since. And like I tell people, like I remember when they were measuring him and weighing him, and they put him in the little warming thing where they take his footprints and his fingerprints, and he wrapped his little tiny hand around my the top knuckle of my finger, and I was more in love than I could ever even describe. And I think I cried like 10 or 15 times that day. I just kept looking at him, and like I'm like, wow. Like it's still crazy to me that like you can create another person. That's absolutely wild to me. So um so we went to once we had the baby, they moved us from a delivery room over to I guess it's the monitoring room where you go over and they kind of come in and they watch. And when my son was born, they were worried about his, I think it was his blood sugar level, so that they kept pricking him. And like every time they would prick him, he would cry. I'm like, I wanted to fight the doctors. I'm like, stop pricking my baby. Uh, so um, luckily his levels started to level out. But he was an extremely small baby because he was born a month early, because he was supposed to be born July 11th, and he ended up being born on June 12th. So he was a month early. He was only like 5 pounds. But like I remember holding this baby and like just being so in love. And this was a hard time because I wasn't set in my career yet. Um, I was working in a restaurant. I was waiting tables, trying to make ends meet. And I like literally the day we brought him home, I had to go into work. Like I'm like, I just brought my baby home and I can't even spend time with him and the mother. Um, because working in a restaurant, making tips, uh, I think the way the family leave thing works is that like you make a certain percentage of your annual salary. So when you're making tips, you don't really show that much income. So I couldn't really stay home, and like that caused a lot of riff at home when it came to when time started to pass on, because my ex got mad at me because I got to go and have a social life and she had to stay home with the baby. And like in my mind, I'm like, I would love to be home with my son. um, and then this became like a source of contention later on. And you know she got mad at me a lot because she felt like I was abandoning my child, because I would go to work and I would work doubles because my income was the only thing that was taking care of it. And like I need to be able to pay rent, I need to be able to buy groceries and buy food, and I had to do all that. And like I couldn't be home, be with my son, and that hurt me a lot. um so the one thing is, like, if I always tell people, I'm like, to build a good house you need a good foundation. And when my relationship started with his mom, there never really was a strong foundation. So there wasn't, when stuff got hard, there wasn't ever like something that we could sit on that would be strong, that would kind of build us up. uh Basically any breeze would knock over whatever we'd built. So it was constantly like, things are great, argument, everything knocked down. And it would keep going that way. And we would break up, get back together, break up, get back together, break up, get back together. And like it never worked out. And like I wanted it to work out so bad, because honestly, like, as great as things are now, like as far as the co-parenting goes, um it was not easy. And it's still not easy on days where I can't be with him, or when I can't see him, or when I can't talk to him. And part of that comes with the challenges that I faced through the family court system that kind of allowed that to happen and allowed that separation to occur. Um, but we tried so many different times to make it work, and it didn't ever work. And like I think as a as a man, it was hard to accept failure. And then like the final time when it was finally over, there was no turning back. And I fell in really dark times in this time. And I talk about in one of my videos where I was suicidal at this time. And I thought about hurting myself. And I was coming home from drill one weekend, and my commander said, "Hey, when you get home, let me know." And he reached out to me, and I reached out like I'm not okay, and I tried to talk to my ex, and she wouldn't talk to me, and I was like, I just want to make this pain go away, and I tried to hurt myself, and luckily at that time I'd started church probably about a year prior, and I was in a men's group, and thankfully I had these men to talk to, and I pulled over on the side of the road, and I was like, I'm thinking about crashing my car, and thankfully I didn't do it, but like when I told my commander that I was thinking about hurting myself, one of the things they did was when I came home, they did a welfare check on me. So my home of record was where my fiance and my son lived. So when I came home, my NCOIC, he came to the house and he checked on me, and he came in uniform, and they told me that like you're going to an active duty installation to get a psychological check and to see a therapist, and um, she was like, "Well, you got arrested. You're being taken into custody," and it wasn't the way it is, because I think the one thing I'm really grateful for is that like there's this stigma that, like it's not okay to be not okay. Um, and when I told the military about this, honestly, I'm really proud that they stepped up, and they took care of me. They made sure I got everything I needed. They got me to base. They made sure I talked to a professional, and they made sure that I was okay. Um, and this is honestly a big turning point. Unfortunately, this kind of like set the the standard of how the family court was going to go, and kind of the narrative that was around it. He's suicidal. He's feeling these certain things. He's not good to be around his child. And so when I got there, I was like, I really want to go talk to the chaplain. And I went and talked to the chaplain. I kind of told him what was going on. And I told him my favorite Bible verse, which is there's one Bible verse where basically like the apostles, this is after like Jesus gave them the ability to perform miracles, and he goes up and they go up to him and they're like, we couldn't cast out this demon in these people. And he's like, you have little faith. He's like, if you had even a mustard seed of faith, you could tell these mountains to move and they would do it. And you know in my mind I was always like, when I pray, like I need to make these wishes, and you know they never transpired. I never got what I wished for. But basically what he told me was like, instead of thinking that like you need to make a wish and this mountain will move for you, you need to have the mindset that God will give you the power to be able to move this mountain. He's like, that could be you picking up a shovel and you move the mountain from this side to over there. But that's what having faith is about. So after this, I got served with papers. Basically, my ex was looking for full custody. At this point, I was hoping that things were gonna get better again, so I moved back with my parents. And once I got served with those papers, I realized I had to like make a change in my life, and um, I decided to get my own place, which was incredibly hard. Um, Especially, I think this was in 2022, and the housing market sucked. There was no apartments. Everything was overpriced. Everything was overexpensive. And even it's still the same way now, but um, I needed to get an apartment as fast as I could. So I had to kind of settle for a place that wasn't as great, but I needed to have a home where I could bring my son to. Uh, so I was able to find a place, and the worst part about like the whole situation is that like again, I was a first time father, so when I was going through the custody agreement part of it, my ex had basically a free attorney that was going pro bono for her. I had to pay for everything out of pocket, and um, it is really expensive to fight for your kids. I think they needed a $5,000 retainer fee, and then once I paid the $5,000, then they started working. And honestly, this is why I tell people, I'm like, you need to have a game plan. You need to ask people. You need to find a good attorney that's going to represent you properly. Because I uh, I chose an attorney that sucked. Like, just he was an idiot. He talked slow, so he charged me more because you're charged by the hour. And he talked really slow, like he was from the South, and he would talk real. I'm like, can you talk faster, please? So he didn't talk faster. He basically didn't give me any good advice on how this process would go. He didn't tell me how to conduct myself. So in my mind, I'm like, I need to give him everything I possibly can. So I'm sending him screenshots. I'm sending him text messages. I'm sending him pictures. And at no point was he actually filing these things and building a case. So when it finally came to going to court, he didn't have any of these documents ready to present. Um, so again, like when I go back to saying like the being suicidal thing, like, that got used against me. It's almost like it's kind of crazy when I think about the fact that like family court used me going to seek help as a problem. So me getting help was problematic for my custody battle. But saying nothing and pretend like everything is fine is better. Make that make sense. So I got help. I got doctor's notes. I was getting treatment, and basically, like the court used this against me. And when I signed the first agreement, I think I always thought it was just going to be formal. Like we're signing this agreement, and it's just a formality. We're gonna get back together. And honestly, I gave her so much power in that first custody agreement, and like I had no power at all. And I started having overnights, and I had the days. I'd pick them up from at that point it was daycare because she was working to like 4 or 5, 6 o'clock at night, and I would pick him up and I'd have him till she got out of work, and then I'd have him on weekends because she worked weekends too. Um, and honestly, like that, originally I had that schedule because it worked well with her work schedule. But honestly, it was pretty awesome seeing my son every day. Before I got my own place, it was difficult because I lived in the Northeast, so I mean, I was able to go out and do things with him until probably November. But then when it started getting cold, I had nowhere to bring him, so that kind of made things hard. Um, but then when I finally did get my own place, like when you're building a life with somebody, like you build your life together. So like you buy furniture and you buy pictures and you buy a bed and you buy a TV and you have all this stuff together. But then when you're finally like when you're single, like you have to pay all this money to get an apartment. Um, at first that first couple of weeks in the apartment, like the only thing I had was a bed and a mattress on the floor. I had some I had some furniture that I got from Salvation Army, like a dresser. I had a TV, and that was it. We just had this. We had a living room with a TV in it, with no couch. We had a bedroom with a mattress and no bed frame and a dresser. Um, I started with nothing, and I think that's really hard. Like again, like you work hard and you're struggling just to make things make ends meet. So like I had no toys, I had no decorations. Like I went to Salvation Army. I bought like the cheapest pictures I could find. I would go to the dollar store and I'd buy a bunch of different toys. And I think like the one positive about having the custody battle so early in life or in early in my son's life was that like he didn't really care about all the expensive stuff that like an older kid would care about. So I mean, he was 4 years old when my custody stuff started. So I was able to go to the dollar store and buy like Wheels cars and little army guys and little toys and stuff like that and games. And he enjoyed all that stuff. So we would play hide and seek in the apartment, and we would play tag in the apartment, and we would. Luckily, the apartment I had a playground right outside my apartment. So we had that. In those days, we went to playgrounds a lot, and I tell people too, I'm like, when you become a dad, like, and you don't have a lot of money, you need to find things to do that you can do that don't cost that much money. Thank God for the amount of schools that are around because all the schools have playgrounds, and those are free. And then the parks are free, and like you find things to do that are within your means. And honestly, like, as much as it sucked not being able to afford like an iPad or any of that stuff, like the memories I made with my son in those times are probably like the memories that are gonna last forever. Going to the playground, pushing him on the swing, playing hide and seek, teaching him how to play on the monkey bars, going over to the creek and catching some fish, catching some crayfish. Like those are the core memories that he's gonna remember forever. And it's like one of the positives about not having money is that like you find things to do that you can do. Um, so again, going to the playground's free. Going to the dollar store and buying a couple different things, buying a kite, buying a ball, that stuff is extremely cheap. Like I said, you go to the dollar store, you can spend 20 bucks and you can get 15, 16 toys, and your child will love it. So, uh, you know, since that, like the custody part of it was horrible. Going through family court was horrible. Like nobody really prepares you emotionally for going through custody battle. Again, like the court system is not set up for fathers. It just isn't. Um, it's they think that they say it's the best interest of the child, and 9 times out of 10 they're gonna say, "Well, that's what the mother because biologically she has them." And I think to an extent that is true. Like again, mothers have the kids, and being a dad, like you really have to make a concerted effort to be close to your child because again, like the mother has this natural connection with their child because they made them, they feed them, and a dad really has to like. You need to pick up your child. You need to have that skin to skin contact. You need to be present. You need to play. You need to change their diapers. You need to change their clothes. You need to give them bath. You need to feed them. Like that stuff that the dad has to step up and do to really build that connection with that child. And it's not necessarily easy because I remember in the early years, like when my fiance started going back to work, I would watch my son during the day, and like he would literally cry all day long. I mean, he would take his nap, um, and it's just me watching. Well, I thank you, those of you that actually that sat and watched. I know I had a couple of viewers that were kind of going in and out, but I appreciate that. And now it's just me watching. So welcome to my live stream. I was just going through my family court battle and kind of the early stages of the custody battle and kind of building that early childhood bond with my son. Um, so early on, when my fiance went back to work after her 12 weeks, I would watch my son, and he would have a tough time. Like literally as soon as she left for work, he would start crying, and he would cry and cry and cry, and like I'm like, there's like literally nothing I can do that makes him feel better until like it was around like noon, 1 o'clock, and I would feed him. He'd be quiet for a little bit, and then I'd rock him to sleep. And like this was like when I really started building that bond. Like as much as it sucked, like having to work at nights, like I got to spend the days with my son. And I think the best feeling was when he would fall asleep on me, and like I'd get him to sleep, and he would sleep on my chest. And uh, there's just there's no way to describe what it feels like to have your child sleep on you, especially when they're a young baby. I think the scariest thing is like you're constantly checking to see if your baby's breathing. And surprisingly, that never really goes away. Like my son's almost 8 years old, and I still find myself looking at him when he's sleeping. I'm like, "Are you breathing?" And like I look to see make sure his chest is going up and down. Um, that seems to be something that really never goes away. So if you're a dad and you have a young child and you constantly check them to see if they're breathing, uh, that never really goes away. So just prepare yourself for that. But yeah, so again, like from the part of the custody part where like I started having him on my own, and we had the initial custody agreement that was originally I thought was just formal. Um, she started to belittle me a lot as a dad during that time, and she kind of belittled stuff from the relationship, and like she basically would say like I was abandoning my son when I was going to work to support us. So there was like one day where I took him to the dentist, and I came home and I started feeding him, and I took a picture and I sent it there, and I'm like, he's eating dinner, and she's like, "Where's my son?" And like she was basically like, talking down to me, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. So the next day, I went down to family court and I filed a petition for a change of circumstance. Um, this is where it would have been important to have a good attorney because honestly, this is when you go for the first time, you need to have a set goal in mind because the problem I had is that once I signed that original custody agreement, the courts don't care about anything that happened prior to that agreement being signed. So, like, if you have like all these instances before that custody agreement was signed, you can't use that stuff moving forward. So when I did the change of circumstance, um, basically I had to go based on everything that I did from that moment and moving forward. And this is where like the nitpicking starts. Like you're looking for every little thing to use against them. Like it's so toxic. Like again, like you're looking for things to use against them so you can get the upper hand in court. And honestly, that's not the way you want to go. But I think when you think about the fact that your child can be taken away from you, you kind of you go in desperation mode and you say things you wouldn't normally say, you do things you wouldn't normally do because you're desperate to just somehow have the upper hand so you can at least get some of the visitation and some of the rights that you should be given. And honestly, like I'm in New York, and it's probably one of the hardest jurisdictions for fathers to get equal rights. You know, it doesn't really make sense to me that like the family court system they intrinsically give the mom 100% more value than they do the dad, and it doesn't make sense why. Like, um, the hard part was during court and stuff like that. Like, they never once asked me, "Hey, what kind of dad are you? What kind of things do you do with your son? What kind of interactions do you have? What do you guys go and do? What do you eat? What do you play?" Like, at no point in any of the conversations that we had in court did the judge ever ask that. At no point did the attorney for the child ever like watch my interaction with my son. Like it was never any of that. Like they always just intrinsically gave value to my ex, and that's the hard part. Is like that's why like the the family court system is just so toxic. Like again, it doesn't promote people working together. It doesn't promote co-parenting. It doesn't promote 50-50 because in actuality, like if there's two parents that both want their kids, it should be 50-50. Like, but then like when I did more research on it and like you see that the state gets kickback if there's child support. So in reality, they don't want 50-50 because if two people have 50-50 custody, there's no kickback to the state because like in my case, my child support is it's garnished from my wages. So every paycheck money comes out of my paycheck, goes directly to the state. The state directly pays her from it, but they get a percentage of it. So if they would have 50-50, they would get nothing. But you figure if there's tons of dads that are that owe child support, then the state is getting a percentage of all those and they're making money off it. Um, but again, like this is where having representation matters because again, like when I was looking stuff up online about being a single dad, and I was looking up stuff about family court, at no point was there ever discussion of what's going to happen post family court. They never discuss that. It's always catch your ex doing this, catch your son's mother or your child's mother doing this, and like it just it sucks when like you have to try to find the worst possible things about them, because in reality, like now that things are good, like I see that my son's mother was always a good mother, but like again, when you put two people against each other and you put them in these extreme circumstances, and like for my case, like if I lost, I would have had no custody. My ex would have had 100% custody, and I would have gotten nothing. So like I think like that desperation, it brings out the worst in people. And you know, I'm not proud of the things I tried to uncover. And I'm like, you know, every text message I went through, every conversation, I try to find little tiny things that I could use against her, and she would do the same. And uh, it was toxic. And again, I didn't really have a great attorney, and he didn't really give me sound advice. And uh, honestly, like I'm still struggling to pay that attorney back. Um, Luckily, being a paralegal, I was in a legal unit, and there was multiple violations that were filed, and we went back to court. And honestly, at that point, I couldn't pay anymore. So I was on Facebook one day, and I was like, I need help. Can somebody please help me? And luckily, one of the people that was in my unit, he was a attorney, and he was an attorney in the state in the county next to mine. And he decided to take me on pro bono, which honestly was like the greatest godsend I could have ever hoped for. Um, but again, like up until that point, it was just a nonstop battle. Like it was a war, like constantly lobbing, like insults, lobbying, attacks on the other person. And the best piece of advice that my attorney gave me, and I constantly, I, I, I carry this with me everywhere, is you control, you can only control what you can control. You can't control what she does. You can't control what the new boyfriend does. You can't control what the new stepdad does. You can only control what you can control. And if you are able to lower the temperature, and you're able to control yourself, and you're able to be patient, and you're able to be personable, and you're able to be kind and polite, eventually the other person grows tired of lobbing insults and lobbing like things that will hurt you, because nobody wants to keep fighting somebody that's not fighting back. Like I feel like when you're both fighting, each person wants to get the upper hand. And I think once you realize that like you can have a hand in stopping that, uh things can start to move forward. And that's what I'm grateful for the most, is that like I was able to listen to my attorney. I was able to cool down the temperature. She would say something, I would say thank you. I would say please. I would like I would do things like that, and eventually like we were able to calm down. We went to court. Um, we got the violations put aside, and then we finally got to an agreement, which was a lot better than the original agreement. It had a lot more protections in it. The first agreement had a lot of gray areas in it, and the second one was definitely more specific. And this is where I tell people, I'm like, this is why it's so important to cool down the temperature when between your ex and yourself, is that eventually, as things cool down and you start to have your eyes on what's most important, that's when things can start to you can start to go outside of the black and white of the custody agreement. You can delineate away from that, and because you're both putting your child as the top priority, you can start to move forward. Um, you know, we're originally on a Talking Parents app, which kind of like it traced every and tracked every single conversation that was made, and like it was just again, I was like trying to find the worst, but trying to find them, and then like when we finally got the second custody agreement, we decided that we would go back to texting and we'd go back to having conversations. And my attorney's like, send her pictures because everybody loves a picture of their child doing this and doing that. And I started to send her pictures, and eventually she sent me pictures. And then like we started to like converse, and we would start talking about things that were important to the both of us, and we started like raising our child that way. And a lot of the drama started to cool down, and you know, um, we were able to move forward. Um, and like this next step is like start making investments in your child's future. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean like financial investments. I also mean like emotional investments. And one of those things I mean is like when you start going outside your custody agreement. So like there was times where like my ex wanted to do something with my son, and it was during my parenting time, and I was like, you can do this, you can take him this time. And when you go outside your custody agreement for that time and you allow them to have a little more time with them, that's an investment that you're putting into an account. And when you put those investments, when it's time for you to want something, they're willing to give you time because you put it in. And that slowly starts to build, and like you constantly start to have those positive things, and you keep moving forward, and you build on that. You can finally have like a successful and healthy co-parenting relationship. And I think the one thing I'm really truly grateful for in the whole entire time, like during the whole custody battle, was that I was able to kind of separate the two. So like I was able to be dad and not focused on the custody battle, even though the times where I wasn't with my son, I was going through hell, and I was like, I don't think this is ever going to end. I couldn't sleep. I gained a lot of weight. Um, and I had tons of hard times with it. And now like my son's older, and he doesn't even know there ever was a custody battle. And honestly, like if your child's young enough and you can kind of separate the two, and you can give them the best of you, and you can when you're with them be 100% with them, and you can stay consistent, because honestly the consistency is what the biggest part of it is. Like people are going to say stuff about you that isn't true. People are going to say stuff. They're going to try to belittle you. They're going to try to say whatever they can to make you look bad in court. But if you can continue being the best version of yourself, and you can keep moving forward, and that consistency shows through, because I had like so many bad things that were said about me. Like, he's not a good father. He's not this. One day they'll see the real him. And like, I canceled out all that noise, and I moved forward. Like, and then once like the temperature started to cool down and we were starting to able to co-parent, like those attacks stop, because when your child becomes old enough, they can speak for themselves. And you know, when a child is being coached to think a certain way, you can tell. I think so. In my custody agreement, during the summertime, during non-school times, we both get our son for two non-consecutive weeks in the summertime. So it was my first week with my son, and my ex came to pick him up, and he had been with me for the week. And as soon as my ex got there, he went up to the car and he started crying. And again, back with like the lobbying and the attacks and the war, like I could see that my ex wanted so badly for my um she wanted him to be crying because I did something wrong. And when he finally was able to stop crying, he said because he didn't want to leave. So again, with the consistency, like I put in the work, I worked hard. Like I when I was with him, I wasn't distracted. Put the phone down. I got down and played with him, and I built that connection, and I built um, that relationship with him, so that when he was old enough to actually be able to like discuss or to verbally speak what he was feeling, like she was able to see like he's not being coached. This is how he really feels, and you start to see what the other parent is doing through your child in those times. Um, like my most recent video I put out on Mother's Day was like putting your pride aside. You know, because like you can regret. I think regret's the worst thing to have. Like I think a lot of men regret the relationship, but I started to have like a different mindset when it came to how I viewed everything. Like I could be mad at like the relationship didn't work out, but I try to change my mindset and have a mindset of gratitude. And like I look back and I'm grateful for everything, like even the bad stuff, because without the bad stuff, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And right now, I have an amazing relationship with my son, and he's almost 8 years old now, and that's like halfway to him being an adult. And like my son knows nothing but happiness because of that. So like I look back and I'm grateful for all the bad stuff. Like I'm grateful for her. And like I saw a post the other day where like the person was like, "I'm sorry to my kids that your mother is their mother." I'm like, what a part of my language, but what a shitty way to like to put things. Like without their mother, they are not possible. Your child is 50% you, 50% her, and you need to love your child 100%. And even like the good parts about your child, like half of that is from her. And I think once you get out of that mindset that like you're not like you want the best for your child, and the only way to do that is to change your mindset, and stop being in attack mode. Be grateful because everything you did up to that point led to your child being here. So I think that's what I really want to emphasize to you guys. Um, so that being said, I'm exhausted. I'm like falling asleep. I don't know if you can see my eyes, but like I got these bags under my eyes. So tonight was my first live stream. I see there's at least one of you watching right now, and I just want to say I genuinely appreciate you watching. I appreciate anybody that stopped in tonight. Um, I had the original live stream up and nobody could hear me, so it was an epic failure. So if you stayed this long and watched, I genuinely appreciate you. I appreciate you guys helping build this channel. It's been extremely hard. I'm grateful for every viewer that I have. I'm grateful for every subscriber I have. Like I said, I might not always have the most numbers, and I might not most have the most subscribers or likes, but if I can make one positive impact on at least one of you, um, then I consider that to be successful on YouTube. So, uh, if you're a content creator and you're watching this, keep pushing forward. If you're a dad and you're pushing for a child, keep pushing, stay consistent. Remember, you're always on stage. You can't change things for the positive in a day, but you can always change things in a negative way for in the day. So keep that in mind. Take the time to think about what you say before you say it. Ask yourself, is what I'm about to say, is it going to be helpful? Is it going to be beneficial for what I'm trying to accomplish? And if it's not, don't say it, because if you mess up in family court, you can't go backwards and you can't F yourself. And you're at the mercy of the other parent. So don't put yourself in bad positions. So again, I appreciate you guys watching. This is my first live stream. We're gonna try again next week. I'm gonna try to have a topic next week and kind of go with that. I think now that I got the family court stuff and that kind of conversation out of the way, I think next week I'm gonna kind of go in more into like a lot of my tactics and my things I do with my son that have helped build that bond with him. So again, thank you for watching. May God bless you and have a great night.